Good morning, people of God. This is Pastor Frank Hawkins from Ladder House Ministries International. I want to welcome you to the house this morning where we believe what is to come will be much greater than what was. In other words, greater is coming. So again, I say to you, welcome to the house. I must admit this morning there were some challenges on getting the broadcast out, but you know what? I give the devil no victory upon today. And I thank God for ingenuity, and I thank God for persistence. And that's one thing we have to understand, is that just because it seems that one door is closing doesn't necessarily mean that God doesn't have another door that he is trying to open. So again, I say to you, welcome to the house. Now, yesterday I had the opportunity to attend a wedding. I was so excited. It was two young people that my wife and I had known, Pastor Patrice had known for some years. And it just kind of stirred something up. I actually had another message that I had prepared for today, but after going and watching these young people stand before God and stand before the cloud of witnesses, professing their love for each other, establishing not a contract, but they established a covenant between themselves and between God, that they would be together until death do them part. I was excited about that because in this society that we have today, everything is just so transactional. It's more of a quid pro quo. This for that. You do this for me, then I'll do that for you. That everything is transactional, and that's not how God intended it. God did not intend for us to be contractual in our relationships with each other. He meant for us to be in covenant with one another. He is a covenant keeper. He is a promise keeper. And as a matter of fact, that's the message. My message today. My message today has to do with God being a promise keeper in everything. So without any delay, let me go ahead and get started. And I'll start out in Genesis 31, and I'll start from verses 48 through 49. And it says, "And Laban answered to Jacob, 'These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children. This flock is my flock. All that you see is mine. But when I can do this day, and these are my daughters and my children, whom they have been born. Now, therefore, come, let us make a covenant.'" He didn't say a contract. He said, "Let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me." Now, Jacob said, so Jacob took a stone, set it in the pillar, and Jacob said to his brethren, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate at the heap. Laban called it Jagir, Shabbatha, but Jacob called it Galeed. And Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me this day." Therefore, its name is called Galeed. Also Mizpah, because he said, "May the Lord watch between me while we're absent from one another. If you afflict my daughters," this is Laban talking, "if you afflict my daughters, or if you take other wives beside my daughters, although no man is with us, see, God is a witness between you and me." Then Laban said to Jacob, "There is a heap, and there is this pillar which we have placed between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not pass beyond this heap to you, and you shall not pass beyond this pillar to me, for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of our father judge between us." And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. I'm sorry, I went all the way down to verse 41. Now, here's what we see. We find that Laban and Jacob are at a point of disagreement. We see that there are some issues between an uncle and an issues between a nephew. We see that the relationship between the two was too much for Jacob to bear. Jacob found himself on the short end of the stick, and Laban found himself on the long end of the stick. And Jacob worked for his uncle for more than 20 years. And during those 20 years, he had been tricked more times than he could count. Now, we know that Jacob was labeled as a trickster, but we'll go a little deeper into that. Jacob was tricked into working 7 years to marry a woman he did not love. And he was also tricked for work another 7 years for the woman that he really wanted. The entire time Jacob worked at Laban's house, it says that Laban's house was blessed. And you'll find that in Genesis 3:27. And Laban said unto him, I pray see that if you found favor in your eyes, in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned that by my experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. He's blessed me because of you. In simple terms, I'm blessed because you are here. I'm blessed because you are here. Now, again, these were relatives. This was an uncle and a nephew. Now, here some of the points that I want to make at this particular point. When dealing with the devil, there's always a price to pay. There's always a price to pay. You might not think that there's a price to pay, but there's always a price to pay. Now, there are those that who are around you, not because they like you, but they are around you because what is on you, because the favor that's on you. And what they want to do is slowly drain away what God has placed in you and everything, right? And you'll find a lot of times in the relationship, there is some type of imbalance. The relationship is out of balance. You have someone who loves to give, sometimes associated with someone who loves to take. And what the taker will do is they will constantly manipulate the circumstances and the situation so that they give less and take more, and require to give more and to take less. All right, so you have to be careful with those relationships. And what a taker will do a lot of times, or what the devil will do a lot of times, is that they will be so ingrained in that person's life till they would have that person thinking that they don't know what they would do without that person. All right, so they are hindrance. They prevent the giver from moving forward. And again, they always try to manipulate the situation so that it's in their favor. That is in their favor. Again, that has to do with the contractual side of how this world sometimes is set up. But God, again, is not a God of contracts. God is a God of covenant. God is a God of covenant. Now, when the giver gets to the point where they're trying to break away from the taker, and I want you to understand that the tricks never change. There's usually three phases that happen in these type of relationships, or in these imbalanced relationships. You have the honeymoon phase. And this is when the giver the taker would say, well, why would you want to leave this? This is such a good thing. And the thing is, right, what they want to do is keep them in the relationship so that they can continue to receive more, and the giver receive less. And then you have the tension phase. It's like, okay, if I can't smooth you with the honeymoon phase, then I will create a tension phase. In a sense, I will try to manipulate you by force to stay in this relationship. And they'll say stuff like, whenever they're around, they tend to act a little funny. They tend to act a little strange, pretend to not know what's going on, or what they will do is they will tend to spread rumors about the giver. And then in this phase, in the tension phase, what they're doing is they're looking for the next person to fill the role that you are about to leave. The giver is about to leave. Then you have the final phase. You have the explosive phase. This is like a total tearing away. This is a total ripping the Band-Aid off of the relationship. And what the taker will say, what the enemy will say, is that it will say stuff like, I didn't need you anyway. I didn't need you anyway, or I'm better off without you, is some of the things that they will say. And what has happened is a lot of times they have already found someone else to fill that spot. And they will say that in a sense sometimes. I've already found someone else. And again, what I need for the giver to understand is that you were too good for that relationship anyway. They were blessed because you were there. You were there. So I ask you, I encourage you to if you find that you are in a relationship like this, ask God to show you a way to be removed, or to tear away, or not to listen to what they say, or not to let what they've said get ingrained in your mind, or even ingrained in your heart, because they are master manipulators. They are master manipulators. All right, so that was my side point. Now let's get back to Jacob and to Laban. Let's get back to Jacob and to Laban. We know that Laban was Jacob's uncle on his mother's side. That's the way, on his mother's side of the family. So again, they were family. We have to remember that she was quite the trickster herself. Jacob's mother was quite the trickster. As a matter of fact, she was instrumental in Jacob stealing the blessing from his older brother Esau. His mother was instrumental. In fact, it was her idea in the first place. We can see that on his mother's blood side, on Jacob's mother's blood side, there was this deception. Deception was a common thing. Deception and lying were commonplace. As a matter of fact, it was the norm. As a matter of fact, on Jacob's side, we see that his grandfather, Abram or Abraham, was a habitual liar. And a few times you saw where he was willing to sacrifice his own wife, Sarah, for his own life. All right, for his own life. His father, Isaac, followed in his grandfather's footsteps. And he also lied in order to keep his self alive, and everything, right? So liars were on that side of the family. All right. So another point, and you've heard me say this before in a few other messages, right? A lot of times we may be battling things in our bloodline that we don't even know exist. Again, we could be battling or fighting our grandmother or our grandfather's demons and not even realize that in everything, right? So now at this point, we realize that Jacob had it coming from both ends. On his mother's side of the family, who were tricksters and liars, and on his father's side, of the family, we see that his father's bloodline had a covenant from God. All right, had a covenant from God. All right, the covenant makes the difference. The covenant makes the difference. By all accounts, Jacob was a low-down, dirty, rotten scoundrel. He was a thief. He was a liar, he was a trickster, and he was a supplanter. All right. In every natural sense of the word, he should have had a bad life. He had all these things stacked against him. However, his grandfather had a covenant with God. Abram had a covenant with God, and he was able to prosper in inhospitable conditions because of that covenant. Now, he was able to see angels ascending and descending from heaven. He was able to wrestle with God and able to be blessed. And again, remember this, he was low down, he was dirty, he was scoundrel, he was a trickster. Even though his uncle was a bigger trickster than he was still a trickster. But again, because of the covenant that was associated with his grandfather, he was able to prosper in inhospitable conditions. All right, so let's talk about the covenant. It was all because of the covenant. What is a covenant? A covenant is a solemn promise or a commitment typically found in legal documents such as deeds, wills, and agreements. They are often involve obligations that run with land or property, and they are enforceable by law. Covenants are enforceable by law. Unlike contracts, covenants are often perpetual and bind future property owners. So even though that property owner has gone, whoever owns that property next, that covenant is still binding. So a covenant is transgenerational. It can go from one generation to the next. Covenants and contracts are not the same thing. Even though we try to use them interchangeably, covenant and contracts are not the same. Contracts are legally binding, while a covenant is a spiritual agreement. I need you to understand that. Contracts are legally binding, but a covenant is a spiritual agreement. That's why contracts can be broken, but covenants can't be. A contract is an agreement between two parties, while a covenant is a pledge. One is an agreement, the other one is a pledge. A contract is an agreement that can't be broken. A covenant is a perpetual promise. Again, a contract can end at the death of an individual, or when the requirements of the contract are fulfilled. Or if they haven't been fulfilled, a contract can be broken, whereas a covenant can't. A contract is invalid. Get this, I need you to understand this. A contract is invalid when one of the involved parties violate it. A covenant remains intact even if one of the parties breaches it. So know the difference between the two. Remember, God is a promise keeper. Now get this. A contract is invalid when one individual, the party, violates the terms of the contract can become null and void. But a covenant, on the other hand, remains intact even when one party breaches it. So even if one party breaches it, the covenant still remains in effect. Even though with a contract, there are grounds for the contract to be broken. A covenant is a type of contract, but not all contracts are covenants. All right, so one can be, again, a covenant can be a contract, but a contract can never be a covenant. You seal a covenant, but you sign a contract. You seal a covenant. I'm going to say that again. You seal a covenant and you sign a contract. A contract is an exchange for goods for one, while a covenant is given of oneself for another. So a contract has to do with goods. A covenant has to do with people. It has to do with the self. And you'll find that a covenant is way more personable than a contract can. Now get this. One can stop paying on a contract when one party is not fulfilling their part of the deal. Contract, again, can be voided if someone is not paying their fair share. However, in a covenant, the party not getting their needs met, again, the party not getting their needs met supports the failing party so that they can meet their obligation. Now, did you see what happened there? With a contract, when one is not getting their needs met, they have grounds to stop the contract, and the contract becomes null and void. But in a covenant, because it is personable, even though the one person is not getting their needs met, they a lot of times would have an obligation to give more to the failing party so that they both can win. Now, isn't that wonderful? Aren't we glad that God does not deal in contracts, but he deals in covenants with us? Now, another thing I want you to get is this. In a covenant, you must hold your promise, even if the other person does not hold up their end of the pledge. So again, instead of being like a contract, when this person does not fulfill their obligation, and you can break the contract, but in a covenant, in a sense, you are obligated to still hold your side of the bargain, even though the other person has not fulfilled their part of the pledge. God's covenant with Abram, again, was transgenerational, and he promised that his descendants, Abram's descendants, would inherit this land because it was a covenant and not a contract. Even when Abram's descendants did not live up to their end of the bargain, even when we don't live up to our end of the bargain, God still maintains his covenant with us, That's one of the reasons I was so excited when I watched these young people exchange their vows with each other. They made a covenant with each other, saying that even if you fall short, I am still here to pick you up. I'm still here to help you. I'm still here to stand beside you, even as you go through rough times. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to kick you to the curb. This is not a contractual agreement. This is a covenant agreement. And I'm here to tell you that is so exciting because in this world today is so contractual. Everything is this for that. If you don't fulfill your end of the bargain, then I'm out. If you don't do what I require you to do, then I'm out. If you don't give me everything that I want and everything that I need, then I'm out in everything right. But covenants are different. Now we see in Genesis 17, 1-8 in an Amplified version, it says that when Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared unto him and said, I am the Almighty God. Walk and live habitually before me. Be perfect, blameless, wholehearted, and complete. And I will make my covenant. Notice he said his covenant, not his contract, a solemn pledge between me and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, as for me, behold, my covenant, again, my solemn pledge, is with you, and you shall be the father of many nations. Nor shall your name any longer be Abram, high exalted father, but your name shall be Abram, father of a multitude. For I have made you the father of many nations, and I will make my exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. Verse 7, it says, and I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout the generations, for I am an everlasting solemn God, to be God to you and your posterity after you. And verse 8, the last one, and I will give you and your posterity after you the land which you are stranger, going from place to place, and all the land of Canaan for an everlasting promise, and I will be their God. I want to bring your attention to a few things in this passage of scripture. God changed his name to signify what was going on. Now remember, he said to him, I'm not calling you Abram anymore, but I'm calling you Abraham. All right. We're talking about a man who hadn't had any children. All right. But he said that he would make him the father of many nations. Now, Abram had a role to play in the promise. He had to walk habitually upright before the Lord. In other words, he had to walk blameless, wholehearted, and complete before the Lord. The point number 3 that I want to make, the promise was transgenerational because the covenant was a solemn oath that could not be broken. So even when Abram didn't follow God fully, God still kept the promise. Even when Abram's generations to come did not did not walk wholeheartedly or did not walk completely with God or upright with God, God still held the promise. But again, because he is a promise keeper. Point 4, notice that when God showed up, Abraham didn't speak. He just fell on his face and he worshiped. And a lot of times when God shows up, we feel that we are obligated to say something. A lot of times, all we have to do is just worship. We just fall on our face and worship God when he shows up. And point 5, notice that God said that it was his covenant. It wasn't Abram's covenant. It was God's covenant with Abram. See, God, he's one that if he could swear on any other name, he could swear on his own name. Abram's name wasn't high enough or wasn't strong enough. So God had to swear upon himself. All right. Who is God to his people? Who is God to us outside of being a promise keeper? And we find this in Exodus 3:13 and 14. And Moses said to God, behold, I have come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your father has sent me to you. And when they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am that I am. And it says that I will be what I will be. And he says, I am what I am. And he said, you shall say this to the Israelites, I am has sent you. And in God's, what did God mean when he said that I am? This is what he said. He said that I am your deliverer in times of captivity. He says, I am your peace in time of turmoil. I am your rock in a weary land, your anchor in the storm. He says, I'm your covering in your shelter. I'm your shield and your buckler. He's your strength and for you when you are weary. He's your healer when you are sick. What is God's promise to you? What is God's promise to you? God will be with you as we go and as we come. In Isaiah 41:10, he said, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I will uphold you with my right hand. Again, throughout these generations, God has not left us or forsaken us. He has not walked out on us, even when we mess up. A lot of times, right, we feel, and what the enemy will do, he will make us feel that if we messed up or if we did wrong, that God would turn his back on us or have us to think that God can't use us because we've done wrong. God is not like that at all. Because he promised that he would never leave us or forsake us, he's constantly there with us. We have to remember that God is everywhere all the time. And he is waiting for us. He is waiting for us to turn back to him even after we've turned our back on him, right? So the way I look at it like this, when we turn our backs on God and however we decide to do this, how we decide to walk away from God, it's not like when we walk away that he stays in that spot. He's constantly walking behind us, so that when we turn, he is not far from us. He is standing there with his arms wide open. I don't know about you, but I can't imagine myself serving any other God but that one who promised to never leave me or forsake me, and one who's with me all the time. And even when I do wrong and all I have to do is repent and turn back to him, he's not far off. He's standing right there with me. That's the God that we serve. He is, again, our promise keeper. Matthew 11:28-30 says this, come to me, all of you labor who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. He said, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. God loves us so much, he's willing to take the heavy burden off of us and take it for himself, right, and put his yoke, which is light, up on us so that we can continue on in everything right. Isaiah 40:31 says, but those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings of eagle, and they shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. That's the God that we serve. He is with us always. He is with us always. So in closing, I'm going to say this. When you operate in this world, just remember that our God is a God of covenant. He's a God of covenant. Again, I am so excited for this young couple that decided to make a covenant before a cloud of witness, and more so before the Lord, that they were going to walk beside each other until death do them part. I'm so excited for them. Point one I want to make. God promised his people is an everlasting covenant. God's promise is an everlasting covenant. Even when we fall short, God helps us to the point where we can, he strengthens us to the point where we can fulfill our part of the obligation or our part of the covenant. A covenant is a spiritual agreement. It is a spiritual agreement. A covenant is not a contract. A contract can be broken when one person decides not to fulfill their end of the contract. But a covenant is very, very different. A covenant is very different. So I want to leave you. With this. All right. I'm going to end with the Lord, with this particular Lord prayer, with this prayer. And I love it because it speaks volumes as to who God is. May the Lord bless you, and may the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So again, I say to you, thank you for coming to the house. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. My prayer is that something that was said today will be beneficial to your life and everything, right? And again, right, just remember that our God is a God of covenant, and he's not a God of contract. Blessings to you.